All right, as promised, we're going to look at factoring of trinomials again. So part 2, if you will, where A, that leading coefficient, is not 1 this time. So this is kind of factoring trinomials, but harder. So let's jump straight in with examples. Like I said in the last video, the only way to get better at this particular topic is to practice it. That, contrary to popular belief, is not always true about every single math topic. There are some math topics that understanding the concept goes a long way to being able to do the mechanical thing. But there are plenty of things that are straight up mechanics like this that really you just have to practice it, and that's the only way to get better at it. So let's jump in with an example. So let's start with 7x squared plus 29x plus 4, right? So we are factoring this guy. We are taking him and we're trying to split him up into a product of sums, right? And so the first step for these, where A is not 1, is the same as the other. We do 2 sets of parentheses. The next step is actually the same. So if you remember from our last lesson, there are 2 slots. There's the first slot and the last slot, right? So in the first slot, we want 2 things that multiply to get 7x squared. Now, we've got a deal. So for the x part, it's just x and x, right? That's easy peasy. For the number part, we need factors of 7. So 7's prime. So this one is kind of harder, but not too hard, because it's going to be 7 and 1, and we know for sure it's going to be 7 and 1 because there aren't any other factors. It could be 1 and 7, but the way I like to do it as far as the order, I don't like to switch the order on the first one. I like to deal with the order part on the second one. Okay, so for the last slot, it's the same as before. It's 2 things that multiply to get 4. All right, so what we're going to do is the obvious answer at the beginning is 2 times 2 equals 4. So let's start with that one, because we're doing guess and check here, right? So let's throw in. Remember that you want to be doing this with pencil, because even in these notes, I'm not going to jump straight to the right answer, because I want you to get through that process of guessing it and checking it and all those things. Okay, so 2 times 1, we're going to do our smiley face here, our nose and our mouth. 2 times 1 is 2. 7 times 2 is 14. And we're just like before, we're trying to add or subtract to get 29. So is there any possible way to add or subtract 2 and 14 to get 29? Answer is, of course, no, right? And so that's not the right choice. Now, normally I would say you should change the order first and then recheck it, because if A is not 1, then the order matters. But in this case, the numbers are the same, so the order doesn't matter, because 2 and 2 is the same as 2 and 2, right? And so let's check something else. So the only other factors of 4 are 4 and 1. So let's put 4 and 1. So 4 and 1. 1 times 4 is 4, and 7 times 1 is 7. Oh no, there's still no possible way that 4 plus 7 is 29, or 4 minus 7, or any of those things. Well, what did I just say? The order matters. So before moving on to another factor, now we've exhausted all our possibilities in this particular case, but before moving on to other factors, let's change the order. So instead of 4 and 1, let's try 1 and 4 this time. 1 times 1 is 1. Easy. 7 times 4 is 28. Now that works, because 1 plus 29 is 29. So that works. So we're going to follow our nose and put our sign up here, and follow our mouth and put our plus up here. Right? So this factors into 7x plus 1 times, now if it's 1x, we can drop that 1, right? And write it as x plus 4. Again, you can check that by distributing this back out, and you should get this original problem. Let's do another example. Okay, example number 2. Is 3x squared minus 7x plus 20 equals 0. So we're going to start with this like it's a with an equation. So we're actually trying to find the two or less answers that will satisfy this equation. So again, the first step is two sets of parentheses. Open, close, open, close. I'm going to bring down equals 0 so I don't forget about it. I don't forget that I have an ending at the end. So for the first slot, again, we have a prime number, right? We have 3. So the only things that go into 3 are 3 and 1. So that's handy, right? So the first one is definitely 3x and 1x, right? Now, for 20, we have several different possible factors of 20. We have 20 and 1. We have 4 and 5. We have 2 and 10, right? So we need to try one and see if it works. What are you guys thinking? What do we want to do? See, usually it's nice when I'm doing this lesson in person. I can say, what do y'all want to try? And then if it's wrong, then it's their fault, right? But it's their fault in a good way, right? Because as we want to try these and practice getting them wrong so we can work through getting them right. So let's try 5 and 4. See what happens. 5 and 4. Right? So 5 times 1 is 5. 3 times 4 is 12. So can we add or subtract these two numbers to get -7? We can. I didn't even mean to do the right one first. I just kind of YOLO'd and said one. So there it is. But I got one that works because if we put a minus right here, 5 minus 12 is -7, right? Right. So we're going to follow our nose up here and put a plus, and follow our mouth over here and put a minus. So this factors into 3x plus 5 times x minus 4 equals 0. Now remember, in order to solve for the variable now, we have got to split this into two parts. The first one equals 0, so 3x plus 5 equals 0. And then the second, hiccups all of a sudden, second part is x minus 4 equals 0. And then we've got two little baby equations. They're going to be easy peasy to solve. So the first one, we're going to subtract 5 on both sides, and then the other one, we're going to add 4 on both sides. So this cancels, that cancels. Over here, we've got 3x equals -5. And over here, we have x equals 4, right? So this one's finished. It's good to go. Right? This one, we're going to still divide that 3 off. You're not finished until the variable's by itself. And it's been a while since we've seen this, but I've been seeing this mistake on homework problems and things in this class and in my pre-algebra class both. But if you have negative a variable equals something, the x is not by itself over here. I know this doesn't have anything to do with this problem, but I've been seeing this mistake a lot. So throwing that in there as a bonus. You've got, in this example, you got to divide by -1 on both sides, right? In this bonus example. So bonus is over. Let's come back over here and finish out this problem. And then we got one more example, right? So over here, the 3's cancel, and x ends up equaling -5/3. All right, there we go. Let's do one more example. Uno más. Example number 3. 3 is 3 equals -16t squared plus 19t and we need to solve for t. Now, we didn't talk about one rule of factoring that's going to apply here. So I'm going to start by kind of going about this one the wrong way in order to illustrate something. So in order for this to be useful, we have to have all the junk on one side and equal to 0. So we've got to move this 3 over, right? So then I'm going to move all the junk to the left and the 0 to the right. So then we have negative 16t squared plus 19t minus 3 equals 0. Now, we've got a flag on the play. We haven't talked about this and in our last video and up to this point in this video. And that is, we cannot factor a trinomial using the method we're using if the leading coefficient is negative. Okay? So with an equals there, we're going to divide everything by -1. Which is going to flip them all. Now, if it was just negative 4x squared minus 2x plus 3, I don't even know that factors. It probably doesn't. I just kind of made up random numbers. And there's no equals, then we would kind of do like a GCF and pull out a negative. So in this little side example, it would turn into negative 4 times 4x squared plus 2x minus 3. So we would pull out a negative, and then we would 2 sets of parentheses, nose, mouth, etc., 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 right? So if we don't have an equal 0, you still have to get rid of that negative, but we get rid of it just by factoring it out, okay? So in this circumstance, we do have an equal 0, and so what we can do instead is we can divide everything by -1. Okay, so on this left side, that just flips all the signs, right? Flips it into 16t squared, I almost broke it, minus 19t plus 3 equals 0 divided by anything is still 0. So there you go. So our next step, our next deal is to divide this into 2 sets of parentheses, right? It's always our first step there. Now, there are multiple factors of 16, right? 16 times 1, 4 times 4, 2 times 8. Let's start by trying 4 times 4, okay? So let's do 4t, 4t, right? Because t times t gives us the t squared, 4 times 4 gives us 16. So this one is prime. So I'm going to break with my normal tradition, and I'm going to keep the order the same. So I'm just going to leave this 3 and 1, whether this works or doesn't work. Okay. So, and then we can come back and whatever. So 3 times 4 is 12, and 4 times 1 is 4. And we're trying to get the middle term. So we're trying to add to get -19. Does this work? It does not, in fact, work. So let's try 2 and 8, shall we? 2t times 8t. 3 times 8 is 24. 2 times 2, 2 times 2 is 4, but 2 times 1 is 2. So we can't do that either. So now, just like the last one, we're going to change the order, but I'm going to change the front ones to 8 and 2. Since 3 and 1 is prime, and so I don't have to mess with those. Yeah. 3 times 2 is 6. 8 times 1 is 8. That doesn't work either. I know you probably some of you are being able to look at that and be like, that's not going to work already, and that's fine. It takes me longer to write this out than it takes your brain to do some of that math, a lot of you. And so 8 and 2 doesn't work. So our only real option is 16 and 1. So let's time out and kind of look. If we put a 16 here, that's going to be 16 times 3, which is 48. So that's never going to work. So let's try a 16 out here. 3 times 1 is 3. 16 times 1 is 16. And that works if they're both negative, right? So we're going to follow our nose and put the negative, follow our mouth and put the negative. So this factors into 16t minus 3 times t minus 1 equals 0. I'm going to take and split it up into two little baby equations. So this splits up into 16t minus 3 equals 0. And t minus 1 equals 0. Over here, we're going to add 3 to both sides. That cancels. Over here, we're going to add 1 to both sides. That cancels, leaving us with 16t equals 3 and t equals 1. That one's finished. This one, we've got to divide that 16 off and end up with t equals 3/16. And that's it for factoring trinomials, unless I decide I have time to make one using box method. It's not looking like that's going to happen, at least today, but maybe in the future that can happen. Thank you guys for joining us. If you're one of my students, thanks for being here. I'll see you in class. Don't forget to do your homework, all the things, study for your tests, all the big things that you got to do. If you're not one of my students, thanks for joining us. If you give us a comment down below how else we can help you with your math journey, your science journey, or general homeschool journey, all of those things. Thanks for joining us. Check out emberlearninglabs.com for more things that we're doing. See you later. Bye-bye.